We have a speaker today, Professor Joel Carlson. Joel participates in 5 different association of realtors from Southern California. He has a company he's invested in called Realty, which provides real estate construction. He's also a professor at University of California, Irvine, teaching real estate classes. Joel is also a mediator by CAR standards. He also hides out at the BCYC. Joel decided that through my begging and groveling, that he would come here today and help get us prepared for buyers brokers agreements. How do we save our commissions? How do we get paid? How do we deal with people? And especially in light of the NAR settlement that's going to the courts to be approved by the courts. So it's better to be ahead of the curve instead of behind the curve. And what I said a couple weeks ago, all those who don't listen to individuals like Joel to help us with this. My friend in North Carolina says, watch the monkeys fall out of the trees. We're going to lose real estate agents left and right in brokerages, and this is going to be a great opportunity for all of us.
Absolutely. How's everybody this morning?
Great, how are you?
Everything's lovely. Just
Hey,
another
Joe.
beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Can you kill the music? Thank you.
So, you've had an introduction. I've been in the real estate business. Well, my license number is 005. It begins with 005. What is yours, Harry? 002 or something? That means yeah.
I haven't looked, I still have it.
Yeah, let's look here. Who's got 00s? Who's a 00?
Well, I'm a 007.
006.
006, okay. So that means he has his real estate like 005.
Okay, yeah, because you were already in when I got here.
Yep. Mary and I have known each other for 300 years.
Well,
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, the reason I'm here is because we've had a decision made by a court in Missouri. Now I want you to understand something. Missouri law is different than California law. Okay? They work on what's called English common law. 1620, the Mayflower landed. It brought with it English common law. It got to the Rocky Mountains, and then in 1848, we had the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, where we got the Western United States from Mexico. Mexico said, you must use Spanish law. Spanish law says you have deeds of trust, 3-party debt instrument. English common law says you use mortgages, 2-party debt instrument. English common law says you cannot represent both buyer and seller. Spanish law says, yes, you can represent both buyer and seller. And it's a little bit different in the community property arena. So, when that decision came down and I reviewed it as a CAR instructor, I reviewed it, it was like, wait a minute, they're talking English common law. We have already had all this stuff for years in the state of California. So it was just an eye-opener to us. Now, I've been using, let me ask you this. How many of you have ever taken out somebody, showed them everything in the multiple listing, and they bought through somebody else? All right, so you all been in the business more than 15 minutes, good. After that happened to me a number of times, I said, you know what, the next time somebody wants to pick my brain and waste my time, I'm going to charge them, just like any other professional would. Do you know why I call you real estate professionals?
Because the state says you're.
Because the state has defined it under their state constitution. Yeah, believe it or not, we have a constitution here in California. It was codified in 1879. It says if you have a state-issued license, that's the Department of Real Estate, a requirement of continuing education, that's 45 hours every 4 years, you are considered a professional. Well, as professionals, we're held to a higher standard. I want to be compensated at a higher standard. So my company, MJC Realty, said, oh, in the 1990s, if you want to buy real estate through us, you have to sign a buyer representation agreement. So I've been using it since the 90s, over 20 years, just based on the fact I got tired of people taking advantage. They say, oh, we just need you to show the property. We're gonna have the offer written by our sister's cousin-in-law's brother. So with that in mind, I've been using buyer representation agreements well over 20 years. This is nothing new to me personally, but the BRBC, Buyer Representation Broker Compensation Agreement, is new to a lot of agents. And what we've done is we have said, okay, you're the listing agent, you take the listing, you've negotiated the commission. I'm gonna get paid by you, I'm happy. What they talked about in the court case in Missouri was the buyer's agents did not realize that they could negotiate commissions. Now, it wasn't for us as agents, it was for the buyers and the sellers is what the decision came out. But the seller said, well, why are we paying the commissions to the buyer's agent? All right, now, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna ask you two things and give you an example. How many of you are gonna work for free?
No.
Nobody.
All right, so we got that off the table, okay? The buyer says, I ain't gonna pay you, seller says, I ain't gonna pay you, we ain't working, good. Here's the next thing. When I was growing up in the 60s, I watched a television a cartoon called, I don't know what it was called, but it had a professor, his name was Professor Peabody. He was a dog, and he had a time machine, and it was called the Wayback Machine. Okay, so we're all gonna jump on the Wayback Machine. We're gonna go back in California, we'll just go back 10 years. Okay, we're all in the way, we step out of it, we go to the escrow office. The deal is just closed, some transaction just closed. We have a buyer statement and a seller statement. On those statements, who paid the commission 10 years ago? Seller did. Are you sitting down? Where'd the seller get the money to pay? From the buyer! Nothing's changed! It's always been that way. It's amazing to me how people go, and they go, no, I didn't know that. What do you think? They didn't pull it out of their pocket. Even if you have a seller carryback, how did they get it paid back? The buyer paid it every month. So the buyer's always paid the commission. So when I go to the buyer and say, buyer, you want to pay the commission? No, I want the seller to. Hi, seller, you want to pay the commission? No. I ain't working. Okay, seller says, I'll pay the commission. Good. I'm fine with that. Now, we have something in the RPA, the Residential Purchase Agreement. It's a new item. As a CAR instructor and as a certified forms trainer, I am updated as to these forms. I would hope more than twice a year, but minimum twice a year. January 1st and July 1st. Now they always tell you, oh no, it's June and December. That's when they make their decisions, that's when they put out the forms, but nobody starts using them until the 1st of January and the 1st of July. So that's when the changes come up. And these changes that are made on these CAR forms, you know, when you look at the purchase agreement, those of you who've been in the business a little while, you remember in 2014, it was a 10-page form, purchase agreement.
Sure.
In 2015, it went to 16 pages. I said, what on earth did you put in there for 6 more pages? So I called the people who are in charge of it, and it's called standard forms. Our forms are not written by attorneys. Our forms are written by realtors. They are then given to the legal staff at the California Association of Realtors to make sure it's admissible in a court of law. But we're the ones that write them up. So I called and I talked to the head honcho, and I said, what did you do? And she said, well, what we did is we put the first 3 pages are what we call a matrix, and it has all the places you can put it in. So you write in the purchase price and how many days this and how many days that in the first 3 pages. I said, okay, fine. So this 16-page form is really not 16 pages, actually 13 pages. And then I found out that the last page is the broker page. That's number 16 is the broker page, so that really doesn't count. We used to share it with the buyer and seller, and then the buyer and seller have their own page. So the reality is there's 5 pages in there of the 6 that were already there, they just spread them out. So we only had 1 page of new stuff in the purchase agreements. All right. This comes out July 1st, January 1st of each year. In March of last year, they came out with paragraph 18 on the purchase agreement. And it basically said something to the effect, the seller will pay the buyer's commission, or the buyer broker commission. Well, as a CAR instructor, I said, where did this come from? Well, the group met, the standard forms met, and they said, hey, we're in a lawsuit, and we gotta make sure that we've taken care of this kind of problem. And here's what the problem was. There are some real estate companies out there that they do buyer representation agreements. So I say, okay, Wes, here's what I want you to do. I want you to, you're gonna list the home with me. You're gonna pay me a commission. Good. I have a buyer I'm working with. I say to the buyer, you're gonna pay me a commission. Okay, the buyer says, I'm gonna pay you a commission. Now, the problem that we have is you can get a commission from the seller, and you can get a commission from the buyer, but you have to disclose it to both. And as long as it's saying we don't care, that's fine. Everybody has to put it in writing. Okay, that's part of our law called law of copy. All right, so if I don't have the listing, so I represent the buyer, Chip. I say, hey, Chip, you want to work with me? He says, yeah, you're a pretty good agent. I like you. Okay, good. Sign this buyer representation agreement. You agree to pay me 3% commission. He says, 3%? I'm not going to pay you 3%. I said, you don't have to worry about it. Seller always pays it. He says, okay, fine. Now, this is part of the settlement that happened in Missouri. We cannot say that. We can't say, oh, I'm working for you for free. I ain't working for free. But he doesn't have to pay it. The seller has to pay it. Where did the seller get the money? From you. So you're paying it. So this is one of the things that they had a settlement on, and they said you cannot use the word free, or that there's no compensation for you as the buyer's rep. Okay, so we got that done. So he says, okay, I'll do the 3%. I go and I make the offer. He says, you know, Joel, I'm only gonna pay 2.5%. I say, 2.5? Wait a minute, I got 3 from him, you're gonna pay 2.5? I want you to pay 3. He says, go ask him. He's the one that said he'd pay you 3. So I say, okay, fine. I go back and say, Chip, listen, he's only gonna pay me 2.5. I want you to pay me the other half. He says, no, go ask the seller. And this is something that came up, top of page 2 of the purchase agreement, paragraph 18. We now have a form that's called the SPBB. It basically says, I, as the agent, am gonna, representing the buyer, I'm gonna ask the seller for whatever the shortfall is. Now, if you look at the purchase agreement on page 1 and page 16, it says, the agents are not parties to the agreement. You're not a party to the agreement. You're not to be telling the buyers and sellers what to do. This has been one of the things that's gotten us in trouble as real estate professionals. We say to the buyer, you know, here's what you need to do, get these things done. And the buyer does them, and then it goes sideways. We're in court, and the first thing they say is, where'd you get that information from? Well, I got it from Joel. Joel, did you tell him to do that? Yeah. Well, you're not a party to the contract. Unless you're a signatory on it, or you have an ownership interest, or you're an attorney, you have passed the bar, you're not allowed to give that to, and it's on the first page, it's on the last page. We still don't see it. All right, so I have not been able to go to the seller and say this until just now. But what happens is, I have to have a buyer representation agreement with Chip before I can ask for the 0.5% from the seller extra. And then it's done on a separate form, and it specifically says, I'm not a party to the contract. This is a request from the buyer to the seller to pay extra commission. Now, I saw this all, I got this kind of secondhand. I called up the CAR and I talked to her, okay, I got it. Now, here's my knee-jerk reaction. I'm the seller. I've agreed to pay you 2.5%. You want 3? Go take a flying leap at yourself. Okay? He's the one to pay it. You go get it from him. Now, the only way I see this working is if it's a buyer's representation agreement and it's a buyer's market. Seller wants to get rid of the property. Seller says, okay, fine, I will pay that extra 0.5%. Otherwise, this ain't working. Okay? So you can ask for it, but they don't have to pay it. And I cannot hold up the deal based on that. I'm representing the buyer. I'm not a party to the contract. If he says I ain't gonna pay the other half and he's not gonna pay the other half, I have to make a decision. Am I gonna represent or not? So now we have that out of the way. That was March of 2023. So we've been working around this, and then all of a sudden we came up with this court case in Missouri. And I told you, English common law versus California law. We've been doing all this stuff all along that the jury said, but the National Association of Realtors is over all 50 states, Guam and the Virgin Islands, and said, okay, you all have to adhere to this. And California said, okay, fine, we've been doing it all along. There's nothing changed here. But we'll just say that the buyer, when they were dealing with them, you have to have a BRBC, a buyer representation broker compensation agreement. Now that BRBC is a 3-page form. So that's a 3-page form. It's not a biggie. But if you look at the CAR website, it's 13 pages. Because it starts out, the first 2 pages are the agency disclosure. Agency disclosure has been on law since 1988. If you sell any kind of real estate in the state of California, you must give an agency disclosure to the buyer and the seller at a specific time. It says right on the form when you're getting, and it's a 3-step process: disclose, elect, and confirm. So you give them this specifically. If you look at paragraph 10 on your, I'm a numbers guy, I like numbers, so I always know where these things are. It says on there, the agent, that's you, must give a copy of the agency disclosure once they have formed more than a casual relationship, whatever that is. Okay? That's what it says on it's on paragraph 10 of your agency disclosure. So that means if I start showing you property, I need to give you one of those immediately. Well, it's attached to the purchase agreement, so everybody says, well, we'll just wait for the purchase agreement. Well, okay, but that's the last minute in time. If you want to establish things, you need to get that done ahead of time. So I give it to them once I form more in a casual relationship. I then check off the boxes on paragraph 2 of the purchase agreement saying how I'm going to represent them. Am I going to represent the buyer exclusively, seller exclusively, or both buyer and seller? We have no sub-agency here in California. That was outlawed. Actually, it was a court case that basically said the Marin County Association of Realtors in 1971, if you are all members of the MLS, you are all sub-agents. That means if I get mad, I can sue all of you. You're an agent for me, you're a sub-agent. And that's what the seller did. And so we got rid of sub-agency based on that court case. It also said something else that a lot of you have no clue about. It said that you can be a realtor and not be a member of the MLS. You can be a member of the MLS and not a realtor. They divided what I call church and state. Now in other states, you're a realtor, you must belong to the MLS. And that's part of the problem they had with Missouri. That's required there. We don't have that requirement. You have non-realtor MLS members. And so you join the association, they say, okay, you got to pay your dues for the MLS. You can say, no, I don't. Now, as a commercial broker, my MLS is CREC, LoopNet, Bravitas, CoStar. So if I don't want to, I don't have to belong to CRMLS. And by the way, in Southern California, there are 5 MLSs. So just because CRMLS is the one we use in this particular area, it doesn't mean that's the one. So they said you don't have to use those. So all of a sudden, they're having lawsuits and trying to apply them to California. We've already had this. We already said, no, we only have buyer representation agreements. No, we use deeds of trust, 3-party debt instrument. No, we can have a buyer representation agreement. We've already had it. So what I want to do is make sure that you understand the buyer representation agreement used to be 3 forms. Okay, when you took your real estate license, you learned there were 3 types of listing agreements. What you do is you list a house. In this case, you're listing a buyer. I'm listing the buyer. If the buyer buys anything, they owe me a commission. If I list the house, I have 3 different listing agreements. Open listing, that means I give it to everybody. Whoever brings me a buyer ready, willing, and able, per the terms of the listing agreement, makes a commission. I do not allow that in my office based on the fact that I can do all the work. He sells it, he gets a commission. He's not even in my office. An exclusive agency listing, that's the one where the agent gets paid. That's the one you use with FSBO. You go to FSBO, say, hey, if I find your buyer, will you pay me a commission? Yeah, but I want to sell it myself and not pay you. Oh, okay, fine, you can do that. If they sell it themselves, all my work has been for naught. They don't pay me. So the exclusive right to sell is the only listing that I allow at MJC Realty. That's the same thing with the buyer representation agreement. There's one that's an open listing. It says, oh please, oh please, oh please pay me. No, I ain't checking that box. I'm gonna check the box that says, if you buy anything based on the description above, you owe me a commission. Now, the attorneys at CAR, I listened to Gov Hutchinson, if any of you know him, he's the head attorney at CAR. He's been doing real estate attorneyness since I've been in the real estate business with CAR. And he said, there's the first thing that says on your buyer representation agreement is location. You cannot put earth. If you buy anything on earth, you owe me a commission. Why?
Too broad?
Too broad, number one. Number two, we're not licensed on Earth. We're licensed in California. He said, if you put California, you better be knowledgeable in the area in which you deal. Did you know that they do business a little bit differently in Northern California than they do in Southern California? Those of you who don't know that, just go to your zip forms, if you have zip forms, and go down to the forms library, click on the forms library, and go down to where it says San Francisco forms. Okay, so you say, I want to sell real estate in San Francisco. First thing you need to know is the city of San Francisco is the county of San Francisco. The entire city is the county. So if you don't know that, you're already in trouble. The second thing is they have forms that are different than the CAR forms. So you go up there, you sell a piece of property, use CAR forms, and now you get sued. You got no way to go. So there's a whole set of forms. They have almost 50 forms that they use specifically in San Francisco. So you need to be knowledgeable in the area in which you deal. And that's one of my subtexts of all of the classes I teach. It is amazing to me how many of us go out there, we sell property, and we haven't got a clue about the rules and regs of the city, rules and regs of the county. And then we wonder, how did we get sued? How did we get ourselves in trouble? You need to be knowledgeable in the area in which you deal. And one of the reasons I do these kinds of classes is because I am, sorry about that. I am making sure that that you are knowledgeable in the area in which you deal. Angel will take care of me. Thank you. So, if you're not knowledgeable, get the knowledge. And that's one of the reasons I do the class. I need you to be knowledgeable in the area in which you deal. Gracias. So if you're not, take classes, get the education. You don't have to sit down in classes, you don't have to go to Zoom. There's a lot of information at CAR about these different things that are going on. All right, so back to the buyer representation agreement, 3-page form. Now, what they've done is I'm gonna go to new forms. And typically what I like to do is I like to project stuff up here. And I brought my projector, but we don't have a screen.
Well, somebody didn't tell me I needed.
Anytime I do any kind of stuff, I always like to stand up, walk around, and I like to do a screen. That way I can make more emphasis on stuff, more emphasis. Emphasize stuff. All right, just to let you know, as of July 2024, there will be 11 new forms and 66 updates. 66 forms are going to be updated July 1st of 2024. Of those, if you click on any of them, is the RLA, Residential Listing Agreement. And it's also the residential listing agreement for commercial as well as, so it's residential listing agreement for commercial, residential listing agreement for residential. And it's gonna take the same format that the purchase agreement does. The purchase agreement, first 3 pages where you can put stuff in. When you click on, and by the way, the RLA, Residential Listing Agreement, I know we do mainly commercial and land in here, but the residential commercial agreement is like the stopgap. And then they just copy it for commercial, and they copy it for raw land and things like that. So if you look at the RLA, you'll see that the first 2 pages are where you put everything in. How much I'm gonna list it for, how we're gonna sell it, what kind of deposits they're looking for, those kinds of things. Let's see, I'm gonna pull this up a little bit so we can see it a little better. So anytime you look at any of these forms, you just go to CAR, you go up the upper right-hand corner and you type in, it says search. CAR's got so much information, it's unbelievable. I can never find it. I always have to search for it. So just put in new forms. And anything that's in red is a change. So we had a 5-page listing agreement, RLA. We now have a 7-page. So they added 2 more pages. Basically, it's just the first 2 pages like the purchase agreement. So you say, well, wait a minute, I thought we were talking about the BRPC. We are the Buyer Representation Broker Compensation. But what I want you to understand is there's been some changey poos, and you need to go in and see what those are, and not just pull out the form after July 1st and go, oh, I don't know nothing about this. So take some classes on that. On the BRBC, and by the way, the one I just looked at, RLA, it is the 10th draft. They started it out and they've had 10 changes since then. They have the RPA. The RPA, Residential Purchase Agreement, is on the 7th draft. They haven't changed the RIPA, Residential Income Purchase Agreement. Let's see about the CPA. They did change the CPA, the Commercial Purchase Agreement. And you say, well, Joel, mainly I use AIR forms. Okay, I understand that. I do too. The problem is that AIR forms are written for sellers. CAR forms are written for buyers. So whenever I represent a buyer, I want to make sure that the things in the CAR form are covered so that my buyer is protected. When I represent the seller, I want to use the AIR forms because I want my seller to be protected. I'll just tell you something, the last 3 deals I've done, I've written them up, I've submitted them, the seller's attorney sent it back in their own, they had their own form. They weren't gonna touch AR or CAR. Okay, that's fine. Who do I represent? Buyer. Then I want to look at what that attorney came back with, and I want to make sure it matches or at least protects my buyer with the CAR forms. Because there's certain things in there you just have to make sure as real estate professionals that have been disclosed. Just to give you a little hint, at this moment in time, if you sell a commercial building, you sell this building, in the state of California, there are 18 standard disclosures that you must give by law. You sell one of those houses over there, 48 standard disclosures. I don't know about you, but this is getting out of hand, okay? It's just one of those things where may I get some of that yellow, the blue cream, please? Sure. Grazie. Gotta have my caffeine.
But,
All right.
excuse me, as realtors, do we have any input at all about these forms?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked. I need your name. I'm gonna send it up to Standard Forms. The people who put these forms together are realtors like yourselves.
Yeah.
It's a committee, and they're always looking for people to volunteer and be on that committee. I volunteered and served on that committee in the 1980s when the purchase agreement went from 2 pages to 4 pages.
So is the reason this is getting more out of hand is because of litigation?
Yes, that's exactly right. Air high five. Litigation. Every time we lose a major lawsuit, it's good for a paragraph in these horse and things. So that's the reason why we have all of this stuff going on. First of all, what they say is, our motto at Standard Forms is protect the buyer, protect the seller, and protect the realtors. No, it's actually protect the realtors, protect the buyers, protect the seller, but they don't say that, okay? They want to make sure that well, wait a minute, let me make sure I'm clear on this one. How many of you like to go to court and lose? No. Okay, just checking. How many like to go to court and win? How many don't want to go to court? That's what I'm talking about. If you understand the forms when they say they're going to sue, you say, well, what? I gave you all this. I did all the disclosures. So on the BRBC, the Buyer Representation Broker Compensation, they made a few changes there from the one we're using currently to the new one. So we go to the BRBC, and you just go to New Forms. This is draft 8.1. So they put in the new items here. The first couple of pages are just like the purchase agreement. This is the only places you can put anything. The rest of this is just reiteration of what you put on the first page. All right, so here's the point I want to make about the BRBC. As of August 18th, that's the newest one. They said it would be July 1st, and they said July, was it 17th or 13th, and now they've come to August. They have said with this big lawsuit that we're going to have to start using this as of. Now, we're California, so our rules and laws are a little bit differently, but we comply, as realtors, we comply with the NAR. NAR says August 18th, we're going to have to start using these. Don't wait for then. Look at the forms now and start using them now. It's not going to hurt you. You can't use the ones that are draft, and it says across it draft. But you can look at it, be familiar with it, and understand the kinds of things that are going to come up. And I'm telling you, I look at this form and I go, crud. Area code 213-739-8282. What is that? CAR Legal Hotline. Call them up. Tell them Joel sent you. I want you to be knowledgeable in the area. And I ask them, where did this come from? because they have to approve it. It's put together by realtors, but then it goes to legal staff at CAR to make sure it's admissible in a court of law. So they understand what the backing is of it and how to explain it to your buyers and sellers. It's just amazing to me, you know, and they tell you, don't practice law. What? We got over, do you know how many forms we could possibly use in a real estate transaction in the state of California right now, zip forms? 259 forms. There are 259 forms you could use. And they tell you, don't practice law? Give me a break. As a matter of fact, 10 years ago, when they first came up with in the purchase agreement, I have been doing this business since 1976. I have never seen the words real estate attorney in any contract for CAR. It is now in the RPA, residential purchase agreement, 3 times. Consult with a qualified, I don't know what that means, California real estate attorney. Did you know to pass the bar in the state of California, or no, to be an attorney in the state of California, you have to pass the bar?
Yes.
That's all you have to do. You don't have to have classes. You don't have to have a degree. You just have to pass the bar. If you can pass the bar, you can be an attorney.
Yes.
Does that scare anybody except me? Or maybe explain some things? Okay. So, as a matter of fact, where I live in Newport Beach, when you get pulled over by a police officer, they don't ask you for your driver's license. They ask you for your attorney's license because everybody has one. All right. So on the buyer representation broker compensation agreement, here's basically what it says. It says, hi, I'm going to represent you and I'm going to show you properties, and if you buy a piece of property, you owe me a commission. If in fact the seller doesn't pay me a commission, then you're going to pay me. They always say, well, I don't think I should have to do, okay, wait a minute. And then I explained to them, if you gave the money to the seller would give the money to me. You've always paid the commission. Oh, I didn't know that. If we go to the seller and say, hi seller, will you pay Joel? And they said, no, we're not gonna pay Joel. I say, the buyer says, no problem. I'm buying this property. We always use nice round numbers for Joel, okay? I'm buying this property for $1 million. However, I'm not gonna pay, you're not paying the commission, seller, I'm paying the commission. So I'm not gonna pay you $1 million, I'm gonna pay you 970, and I'm gonna pay Joel the 30,000. Okay, so did the seller net the same amount? Yeah, they would have gotten $1 million and paid me. They got 970 and the buyer paid me. So the seller's okay, they didn't pay, you know, they didn't lose any money. You know who lost money? Are you ready? Strap yourselves in. The taxing agencies. When you sell a piece of property in the state of California, Prop 13 says 1% of sales price. The sales price went from $1 million to 970. They just lost taxes on $30,000. You think the state of California is not gonna go, whoop, we messed this one up. So I'm gonna tell you, all of the stuff that's going on, it's gonna level out, and we're gonna keep doing it the way we've always done it. The seller will pay the commission based on the fact that they know, they always have. And if the lenders tell us, no, you can't finance a commission. What? You always have. Even in a VA, 0 down. The money goes from the buyer pays it all back, it goes to the seller, and the seller pays me a commission. So the buyer has always paid the commission. It's just one of those things where we didn't see it that way, and it wasn't on the closing statements. So once the feds get a hold of this, FHA, VA, and then the rest of the, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac have already come out and said, yeah, we've always financed the commission. Okay, you can do that. You can even put it on concessions. First paragraph on the top of page 2 of the purchase agreement. You can put it in concessions. Hi, I'm the seller. I'm not going to pay you a commission, but I will give the money to the buyer, and the buyer will pay you. Okay, I don't care. I'm getting paid. I ain't getting paid. I ain't doing it. At least not this week. Maybe next week. I always remember in the 70s or 80s, there was some signs, the guys would hold the signs and they say, we'll sell real estate for food.
Oh, the buyers always never knew that they were paying the commission, but they always were, but they never really thought they were.
Right.
So that's why the disclosure.
Right. Yeah, they didn't know. So now we say to them, hi, you've always been paying the commission. It's
And the
okay to pay it.
sellers always thought that they paid the commission, but
Right.
they weren't. They always thought, oh, it's coming out of my pocket, but it's coming out of the financier's pocket, coming out of the bank's pocket.
Exactly.
Seller's not paying a penny.
Right. They didn't pay the commission. It was coming out of the buyer. Buyer gave the money to seller, seller gave it to the buyer.
Okay.
So now we understand this. So
Yeah,
now they
are.
want a buyer representation.
Our company, we had a buyer broker agreement a long time ago when we first started. But
Sure.
And the big, thing is, you go to Nordstrom, you buy a shirt, all the overhead, the employees, everything's built into that shirt, into that price of that shirt. So when you buy something, the buyer pays for everything.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why when they say, oh, to be a food server, your minimum wage is gonna be 20 whatever dollars it is. What do you think's gonna happen to your taco or your hot dog? It gonna stay the same? Oh, I ain't taking if I own the business, I gotta put it back in there and give it to the consumer. I just don't understand, how did they not get this? It's Keynesian economics up in Sacramento. I was there a couple of weeks ago trying to, those guys up in Sacramento, they even no matter how hard you hit them, they go, I don't know how they get up there. Anyway, so buyer representation, broker compensation. The reason it used to be buyer representation agreement, now it's buyer representation, broker compensation. They want you to make sure. So the first thing it says is, what's the location? The suggestion from CAR Legal is to say, hi buyer, where do you want to buy a piece of property? I want to buy a piece of commercial property in Beaumont. Fine. If I found you something in Banning, would that work? Yes. How about in Palm Desert? Yes. How about in Orange County? Yes. Okay. So I put Orange County, San Bernardino County, Riverside County. That way, if they buy anything in there, I get paid. And I let them know that. On residential, sometimes they say, well, I want a specific school district. Okay, that school district covers these cities, and I put these cities in this county. Oh, I want to buy in this particular area, and I want to buy one of these 3 models. Okay, then I go online, I figure out what those are, and those are the addresses we put in there. Because those are the ones I'm going to get paid on, that's all the buyer wants. Now, you've heard the old adage, buyers are liars. So that's why I always say, if I can find you a piece of property that meets your needs in this area, would you buy it? Yes, then I add that. I put that into the buyer representation agreement. I want to make sure, I don't care what, you're driving home from New York and you buy a piece of property in Blythe, I'm going to get paid. And that's why I don't, my office policy is we always check off the box that says exclusive buyer representation. No matter what they buy, I get paid. Okay? But you have to make sure that you don't put something so broad that the courts go, no. And that's what CAR advises about. Yes?
Yeah, the agent, like I asked an attorney one time, but no laws are set in stone yet, but I asked him, if a buyer's agent calls me and says, what's the commission? You're not allowed to say?
You can say, we decided this in Missouri. NAR said, okay, you can. I, as a real estate agent, I'm gonna take a listing, I'm gonna say, hi, are you gonna pay the the buyer broker? Well, I don't know, why should I? This is the reason. Okay, I'll pay it. I can't put that in the MLS. But I have a buyer who wants to buy that property. I'm gonna call up the other agent. Hey, is your seller paying a commission? Yes. Bingo. Can they put it in the MLS? No. Could they put it on their website? Yes. Can they tell me? Yes.
Oh, they can tell you?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Nothing in the agreement with the settlement about that.
You can put it on flyers and
Put it
any
on
other
flyers. You
marketing.
can't put it in the MLS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that
You can put it anywhere.
I've read some of these Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma listing agreements. What we did in California is the buyer agrees to, the seller agrees to pay a commission, and we put in those agreements how much we're gonna offer the buying office in the agreement. On those other states, that's not in there. So it says these sellers out there paying a 6% commission, they didn't realize part of that money is gonna be used to pay to the enemy,
Yeah.
and that's the issue.
Yeah. So they said, wait a minute, I didn't know, you're paying money to this buyer's agent. The buyer's agent's trying to knock me down on the price. Why am I paying their commission?
Is that why they said they conspired?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why,
Yeah.
okay.
It's a
Makes sense now.
conspiracy.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
it
Makes
wasn't.
sense now.
We're trying to make a living here.
Yeah.
And every time they look at you, they go, oh, you're a grape. I'm gonna squeeze you. Get the money out of you.
Right.
What was your question?
So, say, what can we put on the flyer?
You can put it on flyer. You just can't put it on the MLS, the multiple listing service. What multiple listing service you belong to? CRMLS. So you just can't put it in there. Okay. Any MLS, multiple listing service. Now, This only is 1 to 4 residential units. Okay, this law is only 1 to 4 residential units. 90% of the membership of NARCA are residential agents. So in commercial, it's still a Wild West. Okay, I'll say, hey, you gonna pay a commission? No, okay, you gotta pay me a commission. Buyer says, okay, fine, I've been paying it all along. I don't care. They
Question,
know
can
how
you
that
put
works.
commercial property commission on the MLS?
Yes,
Uh-huh,
Yeah,
okay.
at this moment in time.
Just 1 to 4, you can't do it.
1 to 4.
Okay, so I'm gonna, when I had a conversation with the CEO and president of CRMLS, they are also.
Arts?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like him. He
I
didn't
don't-
like me.
I don't like
Go
him
ahead.
either. I didn't say I liked him, I said I
Okay,
had a
okay, you talked to
conversation
him.
with him. But
wanted
he
to
says
talk to
what
me.
they will probably do when they put the no commission in the CRMLS for 1 to 4 residentials, they will expand that rule to commercial land,
Probably.
rental properties, they'll just make it abroad all the way across the board.
And so what you're gonna do as a real estate professional is, I got a buyer who wants to buy the property. I'm gonna call up the agent and say, hey, is your seller gonna pay a commission? Yes, perfect. And then I write up the offer.
What if they don't answer the phone? Because there's a lot of agents that don't answer the phone.
Text
Okay,
message,
text them, email them,
Okay.
tell them I got an offer here.
And then do you recommend sending over a commission agreement as well?
Absolutely, CBC always.
Yeah, that too.
Cooperating broker commission.
And what about there's a form, the anticipated broker commission?
Yeah, now that's a
What
new
about-
one.
yeah.
That's like, where did this come from?
What about that one? Can you expand a little bit on that
Well,
one? Do you know, or?
Yeah, basically what it says is, hi, you can't tell me, seller, you're gonna pay me on the MLS. However, I wanna make sure I'm gonna get paid. So when I give you the offer, I'm anticipating you're gonna pay me. If the seller says, nixo, I ain't paying you, go to your buyer, then we already have a buyer representation agreement. But see, what we're doing is we're opening the door. Most sellers think, oh, well, I don't gotta pay you anymore. No, that's not what they said. I can't put it on the MLS that you're gonna pay, that's all. You can still pay.
What if the seller says I'm not paying, the buyer says I will pay, can I put it in my financing? Will the finance company still wrap it?
They've always done it.
Yeah, but they'll wrap the loan, I mean,
They've always done it.
okay.
This is the thing, when I sat down, I didn't talk to Fannie Mae's head honcho, but I talked to one of their underlings. And I said, and she said, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, we've always done that. I don't know, it's in our bylaws that we cannot finance commissions. Well, they just recently came out and said, we've changed it. We will let you finance the commissions. Why? Because we always have. Yink. It's one of those deals. All right, so buyer representation. So the first page talks about how you're going to get paid. It says, and it's the same thing as if you list a house. If the seller says, you know what, I'm not going to sell a house anymore, you've earned a commission. If the buyer says, I'm not going to buy anymore, you've earned a commission. That's just how it is. It says that in the agreement. If the seller, I got a listing out with the house over here, and the buyer backs out, and the seller gets the deposit. In that listing agreement, your RLA, residential listing agreement, the seller splits that deposit with you, the listing agent. It says it in your listing agreement. It says it in your buyer representation agreement. If the seller, if the buyer sues the seller and wins $50,000, you get part of that money. You get up to whatever your commission is, 50% or up to whatever your commission is. So it says the same kind of things. In the listing agreement for a house, it's the same as a listing agreement for the buyer. And if anybody interferes with that, number one, the law in the state of California calls it restraint of trade, and your code of ethics, Article 16, say, So I'm sitting on open house, and a buyer comes walking and says, hey, I want to buy this property. I love this property. I say, who are you representing? Oh, I don't know. I say, okay, fine. I'm thinking I'm going to get both ends of it. You got two questions you have to do. First thing you have to do is give them the agency disclosure. That's required by law once you form more than a casual relationship. If you're writing up an offer, have you formed more than a casual relationship?
Yes.
Go like this. Good. So with that in mind, I next have to ask them, you working with other agents? Oh yeah, I'm working with everybody in town. Have you ever signed a buyer representation agreement? And I show it to them, they go, oh yeah, I've signed that. Then I can't talk to you anymore. You have to go to them and have them write it up. It specifically tells you that in your code of ethics from the National Association of Realtors. You say, but I'm not a realtor. Well, then you don't have to worry about it. You're not under any code of ethics.
What do
And
you-
that's, yes, Kathy?
What do you do when, like, buyers come at an open house and they
Okay.
lie about that they haven't signed anything, they have?
Okay,
And they
do
wanna see the
buyers
house
lie?
and-
Yes.
Okay, do you still get paid?
Well, how are you gonna, if they have a signed agreement with somebody else?
You're gonna get paid. You were the one, you wrote it up and you said, are you working with anybody? It says on the agreement, are you working with anybody else? You said no. If you are, you have to put it in here.
Yeah.
You say, yeah, I'm working with this other broker, and if I buy something, I want him to get paid. Well, then you don't want to work with me. My office policy, MJC Realty, you put anybody's name, any other realtor's name in there, or any other buyer's name, or seller's names, I ain't working with you. Because you'll buy it, they'll sell it, and they'll make the commission, I've done all the work. I've gotten old and grumpy. Yes.
What does your crystal ball say, and it may be a bit murky admittedly, regarding the prospects of realtors moving towards different realtors?
Good.
Moving to a different mode of compensation, an hourly, flat fee?
Absolutely. It's already come up.
Okay.
It'll be a flat fee, it'll be hourly. I've always charged hourly. I got a guy right now sends me out running around, I charge him hourly. Okay, so it's just going to be, we're almost going to be like attorneys. We're going to say, first of all, you need a retainer of this amount, and I'll show you properties as a buyer. And then if we go beyond that, you're going to pay me hourly.
You put that bill in against the commission?
You could do that.
Yes.
I do that several times. I say, hi, you pay me $495 an hour. If in fact you buy something, I'll roll that into my commission. So you don't pay me twice, you just pay me one time. That's what I want. I want the commission. But you can do it, and CAR Legal has already established that they don't want you to call it commission. They want you to call it compensation. How did you get compensated? I got a Rolex watch, fine. Still compensation, it's not a commission. That seemed to be a bad word.
Do you put the hourly rate in the buyer broker agreement?
No,
Or
you have a
how-
separate agreement for that.
Oh, there is a separate, okay.
No, there's not. We don't have anything like that. Even AIR has nothing like that. I put that together with my attorney many years ago.
Oh, okay.
These guys were sending me out on wild goose chases, and then I'd come back and they say, yeah, we decided we're not gonna buy anything. And I went, we ain't doing this anymore. An attorney, you go to an attorney and say, hi, I got some questions. They send you a bill. I'm a professional too. I'm gonna send you a bill, and I let them know it's gonna cost you this amount of money. If in fact we buy something, I roll that into your commission. My attorney talked to me, I don't know, last year, and he said, Joel, you charge $495 an hour? I said, yes, I do. He said, you make more than I do. I said, exactly. I put deals together. I don't blow them up. So let's get back to the buyer representation agreement. So the first thing you want to do is put in what areas your buyer's going to buy in. The second thing is your commission. So how much you're going to make. Now, if you're not a broker, you don't make that decision. That the decision is made by your broker under 10131 of the Business and Professions Code. The kicker on this whole thing is in California, you should have what's called an independent contractor agreement. It's required by law, but I'm not gonna go there with you. The state of California says your broker is your employer. IRS says, no, you're independent contractors. Now, we don't have to withhold, as a broker, I don't have to withhold taxes and send it to the franchise tax board yet. But I need a buyer representation agreement that is gonna be applicable to my agents. So I tell them, you fill this thing out, bring it back to me. There's a paragraph in here that says, if I don't like it, you got no deal. So I get to look at it and say, what kind of trouble am I in? Otherwise, you put this together and it's binding under law to me, the broker, because you have the right to sign on my behalf based on your independent contractor agreement, which you're all supposed to have, okay? All right, so we've set up our commission, whatever it is. Then you have to do certain things to earn your commission. So it comes down here and it says, you're going to show them property. You're not going to just send them on a drip list. Oh, you want to buy property? Sure. What do you want to buy? 3-bedroom, 2-bath? Okay, I want to buy this. I put it on there and I just send you stuff. I never show you anything. You need to be actively involved according to this contract. So you have to show them some stuff. You have to meet with them. You have to make sure they're qualified. How many of you go out and show real estate to your buyers that aren't qualified?
I've done it before.
I said, never do that, never do. And I had one agent or student say, well, I do that. I said, why would you do that? She said, I need the practice. Okay, fine. You know, if you need practice, that's great. Otherwise, don't do that stuff. If they can't buy what you're showing them, the only reason you're showing them is you need decorating ideas. And so otherwise, don't go out there and work with this kind of stuff. It talks about in your your BRBC, buyer representation, broker compensation, they have non-exclusive. It is automatically non-exclusive. The non-exclusive is if I list a house over here, that's an open listing. The non-exclusive buyer representation agreement is what it defaults to. That means if they buy anything, you don't get paid. I always check off the box that says, I'm going to get paid. I want an exclusive. You buy anything within these parameters and I get paid. And I always broaden the parameters.
Can you put something like Southern California for the area?
Yes, but you'd have to document. Here, what I'm doing is I'm being Judge Carlson. You come before my court and I say, based on, you know, Southern California, what are you selling these people? A house? No, I'm selling commercial. Oh, commercial, sure. You know, they'll buy any places they can make money. I've sold property in places I went, whew, are you kidding me? But they were excited about it. It's industrial property, they were excited about it. So residential, though, you have to be a little more specific.
The county's good enough, though.
Yeah, I would do counties would probably work. And also do a price range. They say, oh, I want to buy something within $1 million to $2 million. I say, if I found you your dream home, would you pay 2.5 mil? Yeah, fine, I spread it out. Because you know as well as I do, they'll be driving along, they'll see this open house, they'll go into it, they'll buy it. I want to get paid for that. And I always tell them, listen, when you go and talk to, you know, you go to the open house, I want you to take your vampire cards. When you go, you know, it's a vampire card, that's your business card. So when they say, hi, you want to buy the property? I can write it. No, I'm working with Joel. Here's his business card. Take your vampire cards. Because I want to make sure that I'm getting paid. And I provide the services. Okay, any questions on the buyer representation agreement? The answer is no. Any other questions?
Yeah, just pick on the new guy.
Yeah.
In reality,
All right.
not this, but everyday stuff. When you start going out, because this is somewhat, it's not new, but it may be new in the actual, you know, doing it.
Right.
Is getting somebody to sign these buyer's agreements. So
Right.
the guy says to you, well, yeah, but I was working with the guy at Keller Williams. He showed me property all day long. I didn't have to do that. And so on and so forth. So why am I paying for it? All these other questions are gonna come up that,
Right.
unless us as a group have all changed all this, so that the buyers are aware of what's coming, how do you sell this type of thing?
Well, and that's the problem that I had in the 1980s. Nobody was doing this, 1990s.
Yeah.
And so I would have to explain it to them. And I really didn't realize this buyer paid the commissions until in 2000, when somebody said to me I was doing a commercial deal. And the guy checked off the box and said, I represent both buyer and seller. He was a listing agent. I said, you don't even know who my buyer is. Why would you check off that box? And he said, because where does my seller get the money to pay me? From the buyer. So I must have a fiduciary duty to the buyer. I went, it never even occurred to me. So then I was able to explain it better to the buyer. I say, I represent you. They say, well, you know, he doesn't charge. I understand, because he gets paid by the seller. So he represents the seller. Do you want somebody to represent you, or somebody who represents, oh, I want somebody who represents me, then you pay me. Yeah, but I don't have the money to pay you. No, it's already financed. It's always been that way. It just gives it to the seller gives it back to me. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. We just offer less, and you get the same amount financed. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they'll do it, and you pay me directly.
However, I've talked to other brokers, nobody's asked me to do this.
I understand. Okay, I'm a CAR instructor. That's California Association of Realtors. I've been doing that for over 20 years, and I want to make sure that you are protected. I can give you information about that, and if you say, Joel, I understand all that, I still want to work with somebody else, I understand. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Right, so basically, if you want.
I'm gonna fire
somebody-
you. You ain't gonna fire me.
Right, if you want somebody to represent you in your best interests.
Good. Isn't that what we want?
That's what I do.
Yes.
If you want somebody to put you in the car and actually take you to the properties, I'll do it, but I gotta get paid for it.
Exactly.
That type of thing. So you gotta cost justify what you're gonna do. And like you said, is pretty much why you don't hear it. Here's a list of properties, go take a look, let me know if you're interested.
Right.
That's a different animal.
So
Truly,
give me
truly
an example. I got a guy that signed one of these, and he said he wouldn't sign it. And I asked him, I said, what do you do for a living? He says, I'm an asphalt contractor. I said, great. So you pave parking lots, roads, streets, driveways, all the other stuff, right? He goes, do you not get paid? He goes, no, I haven't signed a contract, and they give me 25% up front to get the materials. I said, same thing.
Why do you
Only
want?
we can't charge them up front, but we can say, we are gonna get
You
paid.
can.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Retainer.
Compensation, not commission.
Go ahead.
Compensation, not commission.
Not commission.
You can, yeah,
Yeah.
you write it up that way.
Yeah.
So I go to my attorney, first thing he does says he wants a retainer.
Yeah.
You come to me, first thing I want is a retainer. And so, we're just turning into attorneys. Go ahead.
What I see a lot of this is, as us professionals in the business, we have to do a lot of educating. That's all there is to it.
Yep.
And
Yep.
we have to change the mindset because.
Yeah, that's exactly what part of my question
Yeah.
was. It's not normal and customary quite yet, it's getting there, but.
Well,
You gotta make it work.
has been, but it hasn't been explained properly for a buyer to understand it.
Yeah.
A lot of buyers are gonna say, well, I'll just sign it after we find the property, I'll sign that agreement. But until we find the property, I'm not gonna commit to you. They're gonna say that.
Okay, what do you do for a living? I mow
I
lawns, I want you to mow the lawn before you're gonna get paid.
I know.
No, I ain't gonna do that.
Well,
Some-
you have to tell them that. I'm just saying that a lot of buyers are gonna say that.
You can't, you know what? Even Jesus couldn't get everybody on his side.
No.
You ain't got a chance, brother.
No.
Just take what you can get and explain to them you're a real estate professional and this is how you work and move forward.
And it's also think of it as a filtration mechanism. If
Yeah.
somebody's really
Woo!
that
Air high five.
difficult, you probably don't want to work with them. And it's better to not work with somebody who's going to be a time waster and a money suck than.
Watch this. You ready? How many of you have ever worked with a buyer seller you wish had never been born? When did you know there were going to be a problem? In the beginning.
In the beginning, yeah.
But we took them on. Oh, I got to have some money. I got to pay the rent. I got to pay the mortgage. And then we go, well, I shouldn't have done that. That's why in my office policies, they walk in, they say, hi, I want to buy real estate. I say, great, the first half hour is free. What am I doing during that first half hour?
Educating.
I'm seeing if I even want to work with these. You're a pretty good agent, Jim. The last agent I had to sue them. The kind of expertise you need, I don't have. But down the street at Rip Off Realty, they can help you out. I'm not going to deal with them anymore. So I
And
make my
another
decision.
thing too is if, like you're saying, if they say, oh, I don't want to commit to you, how can you expect then an agent to commit to a buyer? The commitment needs to go both ways. That could
Right.
be something that you can present to them and
She
say.
brings up such a great point.
Yeah,
To sign these agreements, they have to trust you.
yeah.
All of this is built on trust. So you've got to sell yourself to them to trust you to do the right thing. So that's why you need to be knowledgeable in the area in which you're dealing. And then they go, wow, you know what you're doing, I trust you.
There's another, in the paragraph for the buyer compensation, I think it says that the buyer agrees to get pre-approved or obtain financing within a specific amount of days as well. I
hope that's in there.
I
They
think
did-
that's in there, so that could be another indication of, are they serious? Because
Right.
that's something they have contractually obligated themselves to do
Yes,
as
it says
well.
right here, paragraph.
Yeah.
Contractually or not, if you work with buyers that, as he said, aren't pre-approved, you're setting yourself up for heartache.
Right.
That's all
Yep.
it is.
Yep.
So paragraph 9B says financial and personal information. Within the time specified, the buyer will provide relevant personal financial information, proof of funds needed to pay the broker, and be pre-approved or pre-qualified for a loan on the property, the acquired property. So within a certain period of time, they got to get this done.
Yeah.
Yep, it says it right there.
So you can kind of hold their feet to the fire, like, I'm committed to you, are you committed to this process?
And if they're not, it was really nice working with you.
Right, right.
Cut them loose. Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Go sit on the beach for a while. It's okay. Take a little time off.
Sort of like a marriage.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Get out of the house. And again, the listing agreement on the buyer is very similar to the listing agreement on the property. So it will have things in there like mediation and arbitration. Now, the arbitration clause is not in the BRBC. It is in the other one. What they say is you're gonna arbitrate, you're gonna mediate. Mediation is a big deal right now. If in fact they want to arbitrate, they have to add a form called the ARB to that, and then they can arbitrate. And arbitration is binding in the state of California, whereas mediation is, we're just trying to figure out what we can do here and put it together. And as a certified mediator, it's better than 51%, so I'm with Vegas. About 51% of the time, probably is higher than that, I find out it was a miscommunication. The buyer wants to buy, seller wants to sell, and they got these two boneheads in the middle. And they get those two out, and I say, what do you want? Put it together and you get paid. So mediation is becoming very big because the courts are getting loaded up and all the arbiters are getting loaded up. The whole idea behind arbitration was to alleviate the courts. And now they're coming up to their eyeballs. JAMS, Judicial Mediation Services, and AAA has nothing to do with automobiles. American Arbitration Association, you gotta wait 2 or 3 months to get an arbiter. So that's defeating the purpose.
And even in some courts, even small claims, if the commission's low enough, you have to go to mediation in advance before they'll book you on the calendar.
Yeah, that's just the same thing. You go into Superior Court and say, hi, I'm suing this person. Judge says, you done mandatory settlement yet? No. Go out in the hallway and figure that out. We'll schedule you back in 6 months. You have to go out there with your boxing gloves and try and figure this deal out. Mandatory settlement. What? No, I want to sue this punk. No. Got to get out there and figure it out.
Oh, we had this one deal that happened. It was an escrow. The escrow held back $350,000 and they committed fraud.
Escrow committed fraud?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was a corporation. And so the buyer went over there and said, hey, I'm going to go to the police station. I'm going to arrest these people. They stole my money. The police station said, no, this is a misdemeanor.
Contractual. No,
so
it's contractual.
You have to go to court.
Yeah.
You have to prove that escrow company committed fraud. That's $50,000 you have to pay me up front just to get started. Because I have to prove that you committed fraud.
Yep.
And then I have to take you to jail. But I don't get the money. The $350 is gone. It's
Listen, this afternoon, Wes, I'm going to go down to South Coast Plaza. We're each going to steal maybe $900 each, and we'll run out the door. Still a misdemeanor. And we're just going to steal stuff as we go along here.
Right. It's legal.
Yeah. I don't know how that goes.
I couldn't believe it. It's legal to commit fraud.
Yeah.
Until proven guilty.
Well, that's our court system. You're innocent until proven guilty. Now, the Franchise Tax Board, You're guilty. Prove yourself
But you have
innocent.
to pay the attorney $50,000 to prove that you're guilty.
That's why, the only person that wins typically in a lawsuit is the attorneys. Deference to any attorneys out there. Any other questions or comments on the buyer's representation broker compensation agreement? The only thing I can tell you is, number one, I will give you my contact information if you need copies. A lot of you may not have access to the forms, and I'd be happy to send you drafts of those so that you can look them over and get a feel for it, because I want you to be knowledgeable in the area in which you're dealing. If you've taken the time, effort, and energy to be here, then I want to make sure that you are successful in what your endeavors are.
Now, do you feel, in your opinion, that this is becoming more prevalent on a daily basis here in Orange County at least?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, and because what's happening is CAR is pushing like nobody's business. Every day you can take a class on the buyer representation agreement, and they're explaining what's happened in Missouri and what NAR has said, and they've said this is where it's going. July 1st was the date when they're changing all the forms. As far as I'm concerned, it's July 1st is when this, even though the settlement says August 17th. That's when national.
One more question.
Sure.
I'm
your
selling a
name?
listing now, it says in there they're gonna
Tell me your
pay
name.
David Saban.
Trouble. Good, okay, go ahead.
That's what I am, I'm that kind of. So, that's why I'm here. So So I'm selling a property now, it says in the MLS, it's 2.5 paid to the procuring broker.
Good.
Well, is it still advisable for me to get, one of these signed?
Yes.
And if it is, suppose the guy says, well, I only wanna pay 2%, yet I can get 2.5 if I don't sign it.
That's okay. It says in here, you can take whichever is higher. However, if they agree to pay you 2.5, the buyer, and the seller says, I'll pay you 2.
That's a different story.
Yeah, the buyer can say, whoa, 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 whoa. Or if the seller agrees to pay you 2.5 and they agree to pay you 2, the buyer can say, wait, I want you to give me half of that. I want you to give me that half a point. In the agreement, it says you're going to give any excess that you get from the seller to the buyer, or you're going to keep it yourself. The default is you get to keep it. But the buyer can look at this and go, oh, wait a minute, if you get more than I agreed to, you give it to me as a credit.
And there is space in there to
Yep,
do it. so.
yep.
Why did all the agents change the commissions from 6 to 5 to 2?
Competition though,
Yeah.
that's what's happening.
I mean, because, it used to be 6, and then we used to have a 7% commission.
Okay,
We used
Jeff,
to-
it's always been negotiable.
I know.
And by the way, if there's anybody in here from the Federal Trade Commission, we're only talking about commissions as a learning. We're not trying to price fix.
All the supplies on the commercial side.
I have a question, and I think you said this, but I just want clarification.
Good.
If a buyer puts up a deposit and then decides to back out, you say the deposit non-refundable, and is that?
I didn't say it was non-refundable. I said in your listing agreement, if the seller obtains that, you as the listing agent get half of it.
You
It
get
says right in
half,
your
the
listing
seller,
agreement.
the seller gets half and you get half.
Right, that's what it says in your listing agreement. But nobody reads these things.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you
I didn't know that. I've never had anybody back out either, so I don't.
I hate reading this stuff. I really hate, but I know if I don't, I always get in trouble. And it
that
says,
applies for commercial and residential?
it depends, on the CAR forms, yes. AIR forms, no. AIR forms are a bunch of cowboys.
But I
You
think
gotta
it's more
protect
importantly
everything.
in a commercial transaction to have it in there.
Absolutely.
Those things can unwind at the drop of a hat.
Right.
Yeah, what's your first name?
Went through it.
Jatori.
Jatori's talked about the CBC, the compensation broker, the cooperating broker compensation.
Yeah.
I don't care what kind of deal I'm in, and I learned this from commercial, I have one of those.
Yeah.
Because it unwinds and I'm not getting paid a dime, it's like, wait, whoa, what happened? If there's a deposit that's received in your CAR form, you get half of it up to whatever your commission is. So suppose your commission is $10,000 and the deposit is $10,000. You're only gonna get half, $5,000. Seller gets the other half.
And it just happened to me. on a,
It's up to your
development.
commission, so if you were gonna get 3%, you're still only entitled to 3%.
That's right. So if
of
they
the-
got
of the purchase price.
So if your
Or
commission was
proposed purchase
$50,000
price.
and there was a $500,000 deposit, you're only gonna get $50,000. Yeah, whatever your commission is.
Yeah, it just happened to me on a multi-million-dollar deal that I worked on for 9 months. You know, docs were drawn, the guy walked away. Now, he spent thousands of dollars to get to that point. It's not like he wasn't a real buyer. You know, owns 70 million in real estate. But at the last minute, he didn't like the lender. He's like, yeah, I'll just pass. Pass. You know, Dave, I'm really sorry. I know how hard you work on this deal. I said, yeah, okay, thanks. You know, but that's what happens. So it happens residential, I'm sure, but commercial, if you don't figure this out on how to get paid, you can work months on a deal and it'll unwind it a drop of a hat, unlike residential. It's far less emotional. You know, if my wife wants to buy the property, no matter how I feel about it, we're buying that property. But in commercial, the people that do it, it's all numbers. It's, I didn't like it, something happened, I gotta do this or that, and poof.
So, you're gonna get paid. Everybody gonna get paid, because we ain't doing it unless we get paid. And the buyer is always paid the commission. So, that in mind, who's buying the beer? Oh, wrong meeting.
A little early.
That's tonight.
little early.
That's tonight.
That's a fight tonight, Joe.
As a buyer, you know, I would pay, you know, a listing agent to, upfront money, if they could just disclose everything that I asked them to disclose on developments. So I don't have to sit here, run around and do stuff, but every time not every time, but most of the time, it's like, I don't know about the tenant, I don't know about the fund, I don't know about this, and I don't know about that, and I don't know about anything, but I want my money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't get them to do anything, and they're not really, don't specialize in this thing, even, but I would pay them to do it, but
That's why I
I've
always
never
say,
had that conversation, that never ever came up.
that's what I always say, you need to be knowledgeable in the area in which you work. We're all licensed to sell real estate in California. How many of you know about the rules and regs in Newport Beach? So if you come to my area and you sell a piece of property and you don't follow those rules and regs, your buyer's gonna get fined.
That's a tough place, or you're doing development deals.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving puzzle to put together.
Yep, that's for sure. I was just at a conference with the FBI and they said Newport Beach is the cauldron of fraud in California.
How could you say that about my home?
I know, I'm with you, brother. I live there too.
Not only California, it's the epicenter for most of the nation.
It's either that or Fort Lauderdale.
Well, Eminati, remember, Eminati gets over there.
So the whole thing is you need to be knowledgeable. How do you get the knowledge?
Reading.
Experience,
Talking to
professionals, going to classes, things like that. And like he's saying, I build also, and I ask these agents these questions. They go, no. I said, what are you doing listening to property then? You have no clue what you're doing.
You missed the opportunity for the plug,
Oh, what blood?
your education.
Oh yeah, my education. Well, you
Oh,
know,
no, your course, your continuing education.
yeah, I do continuing education courses for, you can renew your license, get your 45 hours of continuing education in 3.5 minutes. And how does that work? Oh yeah, it's home study, that's right, it's home study. I also do CAR, I teach the RPA, the RLA, I do a difference between AIR forms and CAR forms, and I do that on a consistent basis.
And you're gonna be doing the AR and CR forms this month?
Yes,
For
for
Realtors Commercial Alliance.
Realtors Commercial Alliance. So I take the two forms, the two purchase agreements. One is the OFA, and the other one is the CPA. And I say, here's what the differences are. So, you know, I'm a realtor. I understand the California form. However, you present that to some of these agents, they go, what are you, a rookie? Put it on AIR. If you don't know what that is or how to fill it out, you're out in left field. Joel at joelcarlson.com or joelcarlson.com.
Well, I took your renewal class. It was very easy, simple.
Did you learn anything?
I learned a lot.
Oh, good. I just making sure.
And also, I
Send him a
think,
bill.
yeah, he sent me a bill.
I was overseas and I had renewal issues and I didn't know how to deal with the people, California or whatever. They did it, everything. I did the tests in the third world country or whatever, and everything. I was able to log in and it helped out, you know? It was easy.
The company's been doing this for over 30 years, helping you renew your license in a timely fashion. My problem is I want you to learn something. So I make you sit through 2.5 hours and make sure that you learn something that's beneficial to you in today's market, not the imaginary world of the state exam.
Tell us what Revy is.
Yeah, Revy, Real Estate
Well,
Video
it
Education.
was a lot better than Ally. Ally takes me a long time to do. It takes me like a long time. Yours, it looks like me only like a day.
Well, you have to, the Department of Real Estate has now figured this out. So they say you have to take your tests over a 3-day period of time. Because they know you'll take them all in one time, boom, you're done. They want you to learn something. Take them over a 3-day period of time. You have to have your materials 3 days before you can start testing. Because they think you're gonna read them. Silly them.
What's the website for Revy?
Revy.com, R-E-V-E-I, R-E-V-E-I.com.
I'm reading that big fat book now, that big broker book.
Oh, yeah.
I have to finish that this month. I'm with your company.
There's two different aspects, and it says you want to get your real estate broker's license, you have to have 5 additional courses. You got 3 to get your salesperson, 5 more. None of those courses will help you pass the state exam. You have to have another thing of sample questions, the imaginary world of the state exam. They ask you questions, you know, I've done a lot of real estate. I've never had to worry about the Mount Diablo, Basin Meridian. Yet I had to memorize that to get my real estate license, or there are 36 sections in the township. Now, you might be interested in that, but I have no
know
clue.
that stuff.
We don't do any of that. 43,560 square feet in an acre. I'm doing lots, 70 by 100, what? So it's just, you know, the state of California, I was really excited about the last commissioner we had, because I got to, he's really not a real estate person, but he gave money to Gavin, and Gavin said, here's a position. He said, I can't believe what they test you on the state exam. I said, I think it should be more realistic. And I went,
Hello.
who are you and where did you come? And now he's gone. They got rid of him because he was making sense. So they've got a lady who's been working at the DRE for 30 years, and she's now the commissioner. And I haven't had a chance. I went up there to see her, and she wasn't available because I want to make sure that they're helping us. The licensing helps us to do things that we're doing every day, not, you know.
You think they're looking to feather their coffers, I think is what it is. More money. Literally, that's what I've had in audits and stuff. They gotta find something to make money, and it's unfortunate.
Well, the DRE, Department of Real Estate, is one of the only agencies that is no money comes from the state. It's all paid by fees. So everything that they have there is paid by our licensing fees or any fines that they have.
Yeah.
So that I like, you know, we're not getting it out from the taxpayers. And when they made it a bureau, it used to be the Department of Real Estate, then they went to the Bureau of Real Estate. Well, then they could bring in money from and the people started saying, whoa, why are you messing with this? It's been paying for itself all these years. So they went back to the Department of Real Estate.
Well, the other reason they changed it is because Jerry Brown wanted to steal the money in the
Exactly.
DRE.
Yeah.
And he basically put them broke. Took all the money.
We have what we call the fund. Part of your renewals goes into this fund. If somebody rips off, is a licensee under 10131 or 10133, rips you off, you can claim and get some money back from the fund, the real estate fund. Well, he took all the money. He said, hey, as a bureau, I get to use that money. So when we put it back as a DRE, it was like, well, we got to start all over again. Putting the money, it's a reserve to pay for thieves that have real estate licenses.
All right.
Okay,